Hi, and welcome to my channel on mental health. Now, having an illness, suffering with an illness, poor mental health, a change may start to occur with which goes to our thoughts, the connection there with our thoughts, the connection with behaviour, and how a person feels, like the emotions, your emotions as well. So there's all that close connection there of how that change takes place when someone is suffering with poor mental health. But there are many different types. There are different types of illnesses, and they're not, and some are more severe than others. And the symptoms may be more. They may be more severe than, and so forth like that. But not everybody gets the same symptoms, may not get all those symptoms that may occur with a certain illness. Some may just get some of them, and it may affect them differently from one person to the next. But also as well, the healing process, like the recovery, I should say, the healing process, the mind healing, everybody heals at different speeds as well. So there's a lot to it, and understanding mental health. We all have mental health, but it's when things start to take place, things start to occur, things start to change within ourselves. Like I said, our thoughts, maybe thinking differently, our behaviours, the behaviour around it, the actions towards it, how we feel, our emotions. Quite naturally, the actions can. Some people may go inwardly, go inner, but also as well the behaviour, the actions towards it. Something differently happening towards oneself when getting affected with poor mental health can sometimes bring on fear around it, fear of what is going on, the what ifs, and so forth like that. There's a lot of behaviour, the start again, behaviour towards the illness, towards those symptoms, how those symptoms create a connection and affect the behaviour. There's a lot to it, there's a lot of understanding, but it's getting an understanding with a mental illness, because it can help oneself if suffering with poor mental health, but also as well other people, like supporting others with a mental illness. Getting that better understanding can go a long way as well. So the thoughts and behaviour, coping with those thoughts, coping with how you're reacting towards those thoughts. Like I said, the thoughts could be quite demanding towards oneself, like controlling towards oneself, or very, it can vary, it can go towards the environment, like other people, could be personal or towards other people, but the thoughts are not you as a person, it's what happens with the thoughts. It becomes very confusing, the mind becomes very confusing, and the perception around that thought creates something like an imagination. But like with someone like schizophrenia, when those thoughts, like the false and the reality, the false is the beliefs, it's like the beliefs, the false becomes true to that person and what is going on. Now, you can't turn around and say to somebody that is suffering with schizophrenia, what you're thinking isn't what is going on isn't really going on. It is going on, but the difference is it's the thought isn't true, but perceiving the perception around that thought creates the truth. Like, it's really difficult to sort of like explain, but to that person, that thought or them thoughts that are occurring is true. It's true. It's like pushing away from reality. And a lot of the time, like with schizophrenia, pushing away from that reality, like the non-real, the world around becomes different, and sometimes it's like protection from reality, from life traumas, an instant protecting themselves from, like I said, life traumas, but overcoming all that. Like my other video I done on schizophrenia, and like I mentioned, there was a documentary and two ladies, they overcome it, they overcome schizophrenia. But like I said, there's many other different illnesses that occur with the thoughts and the behaviour. Like I said, some are more worse than others. A mental illness in itself, isn't that good at the beginning, but it gets better. It gets better over time, and it's all about the right treatments there. Coping with those thoughts that trigger those actions, the add-ons that occur, because quite often it's how one person reacts to what is going on with those thoughts and so forth, like that. So it's learning to cope better through it, getting through the illness better. So coping with those thoughts will help with the behaviour, the perception around it. So observing those thoughts, sometimes you see those thoughts, they're not true when you start to observe those thoughts. Making a change. It's all about making a change of what is going on within yourself, because when an illness occurs, a change takes place, and it starts to affect, like I said, the thoughts, how you behave, the behaviour, and how you feel, and your emotions, and it becomes negative. Everything becomes negative. So it's like overcoming that and making a change for the good, coping with it in a better way, coping with the thoughts in a better way, changing that, how you react to those thoughts as well, your actions towards it as well. And it's not easy at first. It's not easy it doesn't work overnight. It's things that has to take practice. Like I said, many people heal at different speeds with an illness, but it's all about what you do. It's going to help and benefit as well. Starting off, getting the right treatments, finding that right treatment that's going to benefit a person, an individual, because some things might work better than others and so forth, like that. But also as well, learning to process those thoughts better. And sometimes it becomes very overwhelming to process those thoughts. And that's how it affects the feeling around it as well, the emotions as well. So it's learning to process those thoughts better. Techniques of writing down what is going on, writing down, even if it doesn't make sense, writing it down. Eventually you start to learn to be able to process it, and writing things down will help you to communicate better. So if you're finding it difficult to communicate with others because of what's going on, because of those thoughts and how it's affecting your feelings and emotions and how you're reacting to it, starting off by writing down those thoughts, even if they don't make sense. Eventually you will start to process it, and then taking little steps. The next step, try is talking, communicating with somebody, talking with somebody that you can trust, someone you can trust, that it's going to be very beneficial. Even if it's a complete stranger, you've got the talking lines, the Samaritans talking about those thoughts, those feelings, and so forth. It's very beneficial because it will help you to process it in a better way, process those thoughts. There are other treatments like CBT treatments will do the same as well. Give you that headspace to be able to process those thoughts, process it all of what is going on, and recognizing and learning to recognize that those thoughts are not always true. They can be quite critical, they can be overriding. There are many different thoughts, the intrusive thoughts that may occur, the overthinking, the ones that keep the negative thought loops. There are many different ones that occur. Sometimes distraction is very good, finding something to distract yourself sometimes, but not always using distraction all the time, because you have to get to that root cause. You have to cope with that, what is going on, to be able to let go of it. It's learning to let go of those thoughts that keep occurring, learning to let go of them, letting go of the added, letting go of the added that is laid on top, and that's the behaviour around it, the behaviour, how a person may react, feeling sad, feeling angry, feeling resentful, judging oneself if it goes personally, and so forth like that. It's observing those thoughts, seeing what those thoughts are, and changing that thought loop, changing that pattern of how those thoughts are coming in, making a change. It's like making a change for the good and benefiting and being able to cope with it more better rather than the add-ons, because the more the add-on towards what is going on, the harder it gets, the harder it feels. And it's quite, like I said, it's quite natural to how one behaves towards this, with what is going on, like fear, overcoming that fear, and recognizing that nothing's there that's gonna be harmful. It's just how the perception of those thoughts, like the complicated bit, the thinking, how the brain, how it thinks, the thinking. We're thinking thoughts so many times a day, and sometimes those thoughts just pass by. But with suffering with poor mental health, it becomes more sensitive, and those thoughts become more in the forefront there, not letting go, they're not passing through, it's like a relay, they're not going through properly, and they're there, and they become more noticeable and more difficult, and how the perception of the thought, of how you see that thought, and sometimes an imagination gets created around it, and it becomes more of a bigger problem. But it's learning to know those thoughts, observe those thoughts, taking a step back and seeing that thought or those thoughts are not always true, and basically you get to learn to let go of that difficulty, let go of that difficult thought, that negative thought, letting it pass, because a lot of the time when it becomes a negative thought, difficult, it's there, but it's learning to let it pass. It arises and it passes. And another thing as well, and I will say this, mindfulness, listen to a mindfulness talk, do a meditation, try something like that. You could get them up on YouTube, on the internet, anything like that. It teaches you to, it just basically is a practice, is something that takes time. It takes time, but it also teaches you to process things better in a calmer way. It will help with the behaviour around the difficulty as well. So there are many things like observing the thought, because sometimes that thought can become a bit of a critic towards oneself. So changing that thought loop, changing it, like something that you may do, like I have to do that, or so forth, or changing the way it's word it differently. It's wording it differently, because sometimes it can make you feel angry, or changing it to I can try that. It's a technique that takes a bit of practice, takes a bit of time. Learning to forgive yourself is a big thing. It's a big thing. Now my partner, he's done a meditation, a mindfulness meditation, and it's about forgiveness. And he's been following this person on YouTube for about 13 years, but he started doing forgiveness practice 3 years ago. And out of that, he's got great benefit and helping cope with his thoughts, his perception around those thoughts. He's even been getting symptom-free days because of it. And so it proves it works, but it takes a bit of time as well. But there are many things like learning to behave, like the behaviour around it, the behaviour around how it's affecting the thoughts. And like I said, sometimes it's not easy, but going in it in a more softer way rather than a harder way, soften around it. You got to think, the mind is suffering. The mind's suffering. It needs to heal, and it takes time to heal. But it's all about practice as well. Practicing to let it heal in a softer way, softening in around it. That's not easy, but it takes practice. If you go in hard, it's going to make things worse. It just escalates the thoughts, and it's not being able to heal properly. So it's your behaviour around those thoughts. Those thoughts, remember, those thoughts are not you. They're not you, and sometimes a lot of it, they're not true either. It's just the perception and how we perceive those thoughts as well, and so forth. It's all about not feeding it. When you, like I said about feeding a cat, when you feed those thoughts, they come in stronger. So you're feeding it with intensifying it. You're going in harder, your behaviour towards it. When you don't feed it, and you'll change that behaviour around it. Eventually, they will pass. You will let them pass, those uncomfortable thoughts that can affect someone's day-to-day living. Sometimes it can become very distressful, causing a bit of stress and anxiety around it. Learning relaxation techniques as well. Having a good structure in place. A good structure can help benefit someone with a mental illness, any illness. Having a good structure there can benefit and help those symptoms, help alleviate those symptoms that affect the thoughts and behaviour, and also how the feeling around it as well. It can benefit very good structures, having a good routine, the right treatments as well at the beginning, the right treatments, and follow on with a good structure, exercise, good balanced diet, walks. Try some mindfulness, is very beneficial. But remember, all these things, they take time. They take time and they take practice. It's something that you have to do regular every day to keep up with it. And that's when you start to feel the benefit as well from it. You start to feel those benefits there. It's letting the mind heal, letting it heal. And like I said, it takes time. It will build, it will go to your confidence. The more you do these things, it go to your confidence, your concentration, it will strengthen the mind. The mind will strengthen your confidence, concentration. It will help with all that, having a good structure to help alleviate those symptoms that affect the thoughts. And like I said, the behaviour, how it affects. There's different illnesses, and each one gets affected differently. There's more symptoms, but overall, with a mental illness, having a good structure in place, a good routine will help with the recovery, because there is recovery with an illness and there is hope there. Going forward, it can only make it better, making a change for the better, because it can only get better over time as well, and easier to cope with, and some people fully recover as well. So I'm going to end the video there. Please share this video because it's very important, because some people do struggle quite a lot with an illness, and these benefits, with having a good structure to help with those, like I said, the thoughts, the behaviour and so forth will help. Good treatments, talking to someone you can trust, having a support network around you is very important too. So please share this video if you're watching on Facebook, and if you're watching on YouTube, if you wish to subscribe to my channel, feel free to, and see you in the next video.